Welcome, beautiful people. How are you doing today? There is an image that has been seared into the memories of this war that has been fought in Mali. And it's not the destruction, it is not the artistic level of pulverization that have faced the country of Mali in the past 6 days, ladies and gentlemen. It's a piece of cloth, green, yellow, and red, rising slowly over the town the world has already written off. Anefis, a name most people cannot even pronounce, a place most maps barely remember. They don't even register this town, but for 6 days in July, the desert around this town became the anvil on which the future of Mali was hammered into shape. Ladies and gentlemen, the Malian armed forces and the quintessential Russian African Corps has retaken the town of Anefis. The flag flies again. And the story of how it got there is nothing short of sublime and extraordinary. So with regards to what happened, let's go back to July 1st. Why much of the world was watching all the things, the World Cup and everything that is going on in Iran and, the United States and Russia, Ukraine. The JNIM and FLA, they took the initiative, they formed a brutal coalition and they launched the largest coordinated offensive, the April attack that killed the defense minister, General Sadio Kamara. They hit the Gao base, they hit Hageok, they hit Savari, Imopti, and they hit it in the center. They even struck a prison down south of Bamako called Kanyeroba. Ladies and gentlemen, but the main blow, the heaviest blow, the heaviest hammer, pummeled Kidal. And this exact part of Kidal region is called Anefis. Every other part came under good command control. The Malian armed forces were able to put a ruthless, relentless, a riveting approach to restore order. And the people were celebrating, but the stories in Anefis was different. Now, why Anefis? Because this town, ladies and gentlemen, is the key that unlocks the entire Kidal region. It sits on a strategic corridor linking Gao to Kidal. Since November 2023, it has served as a makeshift base for the Malian Bayraktar TB2 drones, the eyes in the sky that watch over the Tuareg-held territory. No blue durag is going to cross those deserts. No balaclava is going to move without the Malian armed forces having preeminent vision to see what is crossing. And if you cross the red line, you definitely know the 72 virgins are going to celebrate. But ladies and gentlemen, what has happened is unprecedented. Now, the Anefis base was the eyes in the sky that watched over the Tuareg territory. Whoever holds Anefis holds the ability to see and strike from imperceptible distance before the enemy could even recalibrate their calculus of combat. Now the militants knew this and they threw everything they had at Anefis. Ladies and gentlemen, the level of chaos we saw in Anefis was so unprecedented that this magnitude of escalation that was calibrated with lead, with brute force, blood, sweat and tears has never been recorded before in Anefis. Ladies and gentlemen, what followed was something this conflict has not seen in over a decade. The FLA and JNIM surrounded the Anefis base. They came with armored personnel carriers, a Russian BTR-80 tank. They came with artilleries. They came with their own drones, kamikaze drones of various types. They came with the Katyusha launchers. They came with the audacity of men who believed the town was already theirs. And for a moment, just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. It seems as though the desert might swallow that base alive as a whole, but they underestimated something. The Malian Air Force and the African Corps capability that did not move an inch. The steel and the metal of men who were battle tested in the infernos of combat. Ladies and gentlemen, the men of the African Corps and the Malian Armed Forces, they did not run, they dug in. And then, between July 6th and July 8th, the sky over Anefis became a canvas of fire. It was unprecedented, ladies and gentlemen. 54 airstrikes. 54 times the iron birds carved their signatures across the burning skies of Anefis. Drones after drones, bomb after bomb, artilleries after artilleries. The desert floor, already scared by decades of war, opened up to receive fallen combatants. Ladies and gentlemen, this is by no means an exaggeration of what just happened in Anefis. According to the information from the Malian Armed Forces, over 300 jihadists from both the JNIM and the FLA militia were neutralized. The precise numbers, ladies and gentlemen, is understated. Now, the sand has a way of keeping its secrets. But why we do know this is the siege was broken. The encircled soldier inside the camp did not surrender. They held the lines, and the line held them back. Now, and on the 8th, the JNIM and FLA coalition, they begin to withdraw. Not in victory, ladies and gentlemen, but in a sorrowful retreat. Now, let me tell you why this matters beyond the body count. Anefis is not just a town. It's a forward operating base from which the Malian can project power into the entire Kidal region. From Anefis, those TB2 drones can reach the Kidal city. Still under the control of the FLA, they can reach Tessalit. They can watch the desert route from which militants used to move men and weapons. Ladies and gentlemen, without Anefis, the road to retaking Kidal city does not exist. It begins. But here is where the story gets complicated, and I must be honest with you, families. The reinforcement convoy sent from Gao to relieve the besieged camp of Anefis, they were ambushed, and they were ambushed twice. Now, the first convoy was ambushed on Sunday, where they had to turn back to Gao. The second on Thursday, but the military resolve was not going to be broken. They moved through the blockade. They broke the siege and they marched forward to Anefis. The Malians' will to prevail would not be stopped at this point in time. Nothing was going to stand in the way of the Malian forces against the north. Now, on Thursday morning, there was heavy fighting taking place. Casualties were being recorded. The FLA knew exactly what those convoys were trying to do, and they were waiting. So yes, the flag flies over Anefis tonight, but the road is not fully secured yet. The militias have pulled back, but they are not far gone. They are hiding in the shadows. But even in the shadows, the FPV and the fiber optic drone continues to create a story that is written in casualties for the FLA and JNIM. Now, they are still shelling the camp as recently as July 9 with mortars. This victory is real, but it is still a fragile one. Ladies and gentlemen, the coming days is going to give us a script. Either the Malians now have preeminent control over the region of Kidal, because Anefis, ladies and gentlemen, is not just Anefis, it is the gateway to the entire Kidal region. Mali did not just hold Anefis, they equally hold Ageok, which is a strategic military base that gives Mali an encirclement approach to retaking Kidal. Ladies and gentlemen, and here is where the story gets interesting. that the Alliance of Sahel States, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, backed by the Russian African Corps, has drawn a line in the sound of time, literally. The April offensive were a shock. The loss of Kidal, the killing of Kamara, it looked for a moment as though the state itself might fracture for a moment. Because if anything happens to Mali, the interest, the security interest of Niger and Burkina Faso might be compromised. I'm not giving 100% guarantee because those states are equally very, very formidable. But a compromise to Mali will be a significant escalation to the insecurity that will dislodge the two other states. And we know those that are interested in dislodging the states. But even if the April offensive was a shock, the Malians have since consolidated their position. But the retaking of Anefis, the 6-day furnace in the desert, suggests something else. It suggests that Bamako has learned. The African Corps, for all its challenges, is adapting. That era of militants dictating the tempo of what this war was going to be about is entering its final chapters. Now, I'm not here to share with you. I'm not here to tell you what is not. You know that. This war will belong. The desert will not give up its dead easily. Ladies and gentlemen, and it does not give it up peacefully. When a flag rises over the town that the world said will fall, when a flag rises over the town that the world has already surrendered, you stop. You mark the moment because history, ladies and gentlemen, has been written in the sound of time, exactly like this one. What do you think about this development in Anefis? Is Anefis the beginning of a counter-offensive match to Kidal, or just another chapter in the history with no end? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, kindly do well to help us like the video, share it, and subscribe. And if you're feeling generous, you can help us leave a comment in the comment section below. It's been long, and Dread came to the show packed and exactly ready to announce the great conquest of the Malian armed forces like this. Long live the Malian military, homeland or death. Ladies and gentlemen, the war in Mali is being fought at a breakneck speed. The Malian armed forces are prevailing. They are adapting. They are improving. A new security architecture is being written. But ladies and gentlemen, the man at the helm of affairs in Mali stands strong and prevail over all his enemy. General Assimi Goita. What a man, what a general, what a leader, what a fighter. And today, we pay our homage and respect and our condolences to the fallen heroes of Mali. The men who have fought in Anefis will never be forgotten, both from the Russian and African Corps and from the Malian armed forces. When the history of Anefis will be written, this brave man will never ever be forgotten. Thank you, and God bless you.